Imagine surviving the end of the world, only to realize survival wasn't the reward you thought it was. Imagine living forever in a body that reminds everyone of what they lost. This is the curse of being a ghoul. Ghouls are not meant to exist in any planned version of the world. They are the unintended consequences of radiation, accidents born from destruction rather than survival. They live through events that instantly erase others from existence. But survival does not come clean, painless, or merciful. Their bodies endure damage that never truly stabilizes. Pain does not end after transformation. It becomes permanent background noise. Life turns into a prolonged aftershock of the blast that created them. Every breath feels borrowed rather than owned. Every day feels provisional, never guaranteed, and borrowed time never allows peace. A ghoul's body is not stable. It is constantly deteriorating. Skin decays, muscles weaken, senses dull, and damage accumulates without relief. There is no true healing process, only temporary survival. Wounds linger longer than they should, sometimes never closing at all. Every injury becomes a reminder that the body is unfinished and failing. Pain is not an exception, but a routine condition. Decay becomes familiar, even expected. Mirrors become objects of avoidance rather than reflection. The body stops feeling like home and starts feeling like confinement, and there is no escape from it. Ghouls age without the release of death. They exist far beyond usefulness, relevance, or comfort. Immortality sounds powerful until it arrives without renewal or growth. They do not grow stronger, wiser, or healthier over time. They simply continue, slowly eroding. Years accumulate without progress. Centuries stretch without relief. Time stops offering meaning and starts delivering weight. Memory piles up faster than purpose. Living too long becomes a quiet punishment. Ghouls do not need to behave aggressively to be feared. Their appearance alone triggers recoil and suspicion. Judgment arrives before conversation has a chance to begin. Fear precedes intention, replacing curiosity instantly. Trust is denied without evidence or dialogue. They are blamed without action and punished without cause. People avoid them instinctively, not rationally. Fear replaces empathy as the default reaction. Isolation becomes enforced rather than chosen, and solitude turns into a requirement for survival. Once someone becomes a ghoul, their humanity is socially revoked, not through laws, but through behavior and perception. People stop listening with sincerity. They stop caring with depth. They stop empathizing with effort. A ghoul's past achievements lose value instantly. Their history dissolves under their appearance. They are reduced to a condition rather than a person. Identity becomes secondary to decay. Personhood is replaced by fear. Many ghouls remember the world before the bombs fell. They remember clean air, unbroken cities, and ordinary routines. They remember people who no longer exist. Memory becomes a form of torture rather than comfort. Nostalgia poisons the present instead of enriching it. They watch new societies rebuild incorrectly and repeat mistakes. They see history misinterpreted and rewritten poorly. They hold knowledge no one wants to hear. Powerlessness compounds awareness. Memory becomes the cruelest survival mechanism. Time is especially cruel to ghouls. Friends age visibly while they remain unchanged. Lovers grow old and eventually disappear. Children mature, age, and die within a ghoul's lifetime. Connections expire while the ghoul continues. Grief accumulates without resolution or closure. Loss becomes layered instead of processed. Attachment turns dangerous because it guarantees pain. Love becomes temporary by default. Loneliness becomes inevitable. Every ghoul lives with the same persistent fear, not death, violence, or starvation, but mental collapse. The transformation into a feral ghoul is always possible. Sanity becomes something to monitor rather than trust. Every lapse in memory feels suspicious. Every emotional shift feels dangerous. Identity becomes fragile and unstable. The fear of becoming a monster never fades. Existence turns into constant self-surveillance. Peace becomes impossible. Some ghouls are killed not for crimes committed, but for crimes imagined. Fear justifies execution before action occurs. Suspicion replaces evidence entirely. Mercy is reframed as weakness. Survival becomes negotiation rather than living. Trust becomes unattainable. Ghouls must constantly prove sanity. Existence becomes a permanent trial. Innocence is never assumed. Living feels conditional. Ghouls are often sent into the most dangerous environments: radiation zones, collapsed structures, and unstable ruins. Tasks others refuse to risk are assigned casually to them. Their bodies are considered expendable resources. Pain is normalized and expected. Death is treated as acceptable loss. Exploitation hides behind practicality. Utility replaces ethics entirely. Survival becomes transactional. Dignity is optional. The world changes faster than ghouls can adapt. New factions rise with new rules and beliefs. Cultural norms shift beyond recognition. Ghouls become outdated witnesses rather than participants. They are rarely consulted despite their experience. Respect is minimal and inconsistent. They exist in a future that feels incorrect. Belonging becomes unreachable. They remain present but excluded. Time moves on without them. Ghouls rarely have stable places to live. They are tolerated temporarily, not welcomed permanently. Shelter feels conditional and fragile. Homes feel borrowed rather than owned. Safety depends on fear levels and rumors. Stability never settles fully. They are always one accusation away from exile. Rest feels dangerous. Sleep never feels safe. Peace remains elusive. Ghouls remind people of the apocalypse. They represent failure, radiation, and irreversible loss. Their presence disrupts denial. They force acknowledgement of consequences. People avoid them to avoid memory. Erasure feels easier than confrontation. Silencing feels easier than accountability. Ghouls become walking symbols of guilt, and symbols are easier to remove than lessons, so they are pushed aside. Some ghouls remain principled despite everything. They choose honesty, kindness, and restraint, but morality offers no protection. Good behavior does not reduce fear. Kindness does not restore trust. Ethics bring no reward. They are treated the same regardless of actions. Punishment does not differentiate character. Doing good becomes isolating. Hope becomes irrational. Over time, many ghouls harden emotionally, not out of cruelty, but exhaustion. Compassion becomes dangerous. Trust becomes a liability. Softness invites harm. Survival demands emotional distance. Cynicism becomes armor. Bitterness feels efficient. Empathy becomes expensive. Humanity feels risky. Because survival arrived without healing. Because immortality arrived without dignity. Because memory arrived without closure. Because existence arrived without belonging. They live long enough to see everything fade, including themselves. They are not monsters. They are consequences. Living evidence of disaster. And no one likes reminders. Ghouls exist between eras without belonging to either. They are no longer part of the old world. They are never fully accepted into the new one. Identity stagnates while society evolves. They carry outdated values and memories. Time progresses without them. They remain suspended, stuck in limbo, watching change without participation, existing without progress. A ghoul survives the end of the world, only to lose their place in it. They outlive history, relationships, and relevance. They endure rather than live. Their punishment is not death, it is continuation, watching everything decay, including themselves, unable to stop, unable to forget, unable to belong, forever remaining.